Hi everyone, FerrariMan601 here. Try something a little bit different today. A little bit of post-race commentary for you rather than commenting live. Today the idea is to do a comparison between the DW12 IndyCar and the 2015 Mercedes W06. So here we're at Albert Park and you can see I've gotten an absolute flyer at the start. We've just shot up the middle of the field and we're currently running P4 already out of 11 cars, including myself. Trying down the outside of this guy, and he's going to squeeze me wide, and we should have gone into the 50-meter board there, but they are non-collidable objects, apparently. We back out of it as we head into the twisty bit in the middle of the track. And now putting it up the inside, picking up a little bit of grass as we overtake him. You can see that the power out of the corners on this first lap is a little bit compromised because the rear tires, although we are running the super softs, they're not up to temperature yet, and I think we just kissed the wall there going through the golf course sweeper. But up into P3 already, and being a little bit cautious again because the tires and brakes aren't quite up to temperature, but you can see just how quickly we gain on the cars in front of us through the corners, because that's the difference between IndyCar and Formula One. So much more downforced, particularly through high-speed corners. No banking on most F1 tracks to help us out. So, again, the IndyCar is not quite in their element, as expected. Coming down the start-finish straight to complete lap number 1. We're sizing up the guy in front of us. We've got a bit of a run on him, but I think we're not quite close enough, and we think better of it before we get into turn 1. Now coming into the DRS zone, coming into turns 3 and 4 on board with the second place car as we whiz by, but he comes back on the brakes, squeezes us into the inside, but that's my corner, so he backs out of it. And now just look at how quickly I'm able to pull away on the Mercedes. And I'm not on full throttle until about now as we exit the corner over the curbing, again still being careful about the rears, and we just pick up a gap, already about 2 seconds in the space of a corner. Back on board with me as we go through my favorite section of the track, these 2 high-speed corners. It's effectively a chicane. And you might be able to hear I'm just managing the hybrid power with the different engine map settings, because one thing that I have noticed is these engines are a little bit unreliable when you turn them up and you let them rev out. You'll see a whole bunch of short shifting going on in many of the onboard shots from 2014 as well as this year, and you'll see me doing that as well. Now that I'm running in P1, I'm basically, for these next 2 laps or so, I decided that I was going to try and maintain the gap around 2.5 seconds, just because on the external view of this, I wanted things to look a little bit compelling, just to make it seem like the Indy cars had a little bit of a chance. But pretty soon I'll abandon that theory and just go for it again. finishing lap number 3, and we're now just going for broke and going for it. I I don't have any telemetry up on the screen for you, but you can read on the dash that we're hitting 190 or so on the long straights, but still being very careful on the traction coming out of the corners. What I was doing actually was managing the engine maps. Probably 5 or 6 times per lap I was going between the high and low, not really running in the intermittent setting, but trying to utilize the hybrid power out of the corners as best as I can, because the throttle response on these cars, as it is on any Formula 1 car in the last 40 years basically, is absolutely violent. And because you're dealing with that electric motor, which is 160 horsepower by itself, plus the internal combustion engine, which the Mercedes is, the ICE by itself is probably almost 800 horsepower. So you get a lot of wheel spin potential out of the corners, and you'll see through some of the slow corners on the exit, I do have to deal with that wheel spin a little bit, but trying to be very careful, because as Martin Brundle showed us in his demo when he was driving the Force India, once you let up the rears, you're gone. There's no recovering it, pretty much. So you got to be very cautious, and again, that is that interface between the internal combustion engine and the hybrid powertrain with that electric motor. Beginning the final lap, now being a little bit cautious, but just bringing it home. The gap to the cars behind is now around 10 seconds or so. And at this point, just basically trying to shift to the lights. Don't want to strain this powertrain any more than it needs to be, because I have had it be a little bit unreliable at full boost and full revs. Through the final couple corners, just basically getting on the throttle very gingerly out of the slower ones, just basically using the electric motor alone to propel us that initial bit out of the corners, because that wheel spin is so fierce. But through the final corner now, and over the curbs, and we are going to slow it down and do a little bit of weaving in celebration as we've absolutely demolished the opposition. The final gap was around 10 seconds because I did slow down toward the end, but again, high-speed corners, the strength of Formula 1 cars, not so much IndyCar. That's a surprise to exactly none of us. So I'll let you watch the external view of this now in peace, and thank you very much for watching.